Hey, welcome to the Whiskey Wealth Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer, and on this show is for those who respect the craft of fine spirits and think long term about wealth. Now, before we dive in, quick word from our sponsor. This episode was brought to you by Whiskey Wealth Mastery, where serious investors learn how to build wealth through casks the right way. So, if you've ever wondered whether whiskey could be more than just something that you drink and something that you could actually own, grow, and monetize strategically, that's exactly what we do. So, find me on LinkedIn at Glen Palmer Online or check out the show notes below and I'll explore a little bit further. Because if you're going to play the long game, you may as well play it like a warrior. So, on today's show, I'll be interviewing Eric, how do you say it? Schinske?
Yep, it's superb. Perfect.
Thank you, Eric Schinske. Now, he is the co-owner and CEO of EP Winders LLC. Now, it's a licensed beverage distribution company serving the greater Tampa Bay market. So, Eric has spent more than a decade operating in high growth startup environments where speed, adaptability, and strategic thinking are essential. Now, with the EP Windows, Eric is applying that experience to the beverage world, partnering with American made beverages to expand distribution, strengthen retailer relationships, and bring that premium American made brands to one of Florida's most competitive markets. So, for those who actually invest in whiskey, beverage brands is actually a real win in a real world distribution. It's market execution, it's retail relationships, and Eric sits right at the coalface of this process. So, Eric, thank you very much for coming on to this show. Really appreciate your time. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. So, let's crack on, shall we?
Absolutely.
So, Eric, if time travel became a reality and you had a chance to go back in time to when you first started your career, what advice would the person you now tell your younger self?
Yeah, I think the biggest advice, because I basically went straight into, the medical startup space,
Yeah.
right out of
Wow.
college. Yeah, right out of college, very young. My background is actually in social work. That's where I got my degrees, and you think I would have learned it there, but the biggest piece of advice is carrying the negative weight that others put onto you from themselves of pressures that they might be experiencing, trying to find blame, push blame, or maybe just some folks that have been in an industry a while almost get territorial because the young person comes in is successful. It's a shame to see that and experience that, but carrying that
Mhm.
weight from others within yourself was really difficult to get used to at first. Um,
Yeah.
I'm really, really pleased that I've kind of learned that. It took a little while, but I've learned that over multiple experiences and being able to apply that in this industry, especially because this is kind of going back to my roots of my first sales job where you get a lot more no's than you do yeses. But it's
Yeah.
also knowing if someone's telling you no, are they actually the person that can say no? It's kind of manipulating that your own thoughts that can be really hurtful to your pride, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, and Eric, as I mentioned in the intro, you've worked in very fast-paced startups, opening new markets, So when launching and distributing a new beverage brand in a very, very competitive territory like Tampa Bay, what's the first levers that you pull to actually gain traction with the retailers?
Yeah, I think anywhere in the world, people find a lot of pride in things that are local. They find a lot of pride in something that has roots that are very important to those that are pushing a product.
Hmm.
So leaving the industry that I came from and coming here, sitting down with Mike Siciliano, he's our founder at American Made.
Hmm.
Sitting down with him and hearing his story is what really brought me in.
Yeah.
Everything from, and I have our current products right here in front of me, so I can kind of show you the label and what goes into that, those bottles. Um,
Yeah.
but the glass is local. The labels, his son owns a marketing firm. His son put these labels together. It started with this vodka, and the idea was American made triggers a few things. This was, unfortunately, these days with our current president, a lot of people see a brand like this and they think, oh, that's why you kind of started it.
Yeah.
But this predates that. His
Yeah.
idea was, he's been in the US his whole life. His parents and grandparents are from Italy. Let's put an
Hmm.
American made twist on the beverage industry.
Yeah.
So, the beauty in vodka, its roots are from Russia. So,
Hmm.
what's that perfect process? How can we kind of change that process so it still has a great, smooth, crisp taste, clean taste, and make it American made? And then his next step was a limoncello, which really gets to his blood in Italy.
Yeah.
It's a generational recipe from his family, and we use local lemons. The corn's local, non-GMO. The lemons are organic. Everything is sourced from here in Florida, but giving
Nice.
a visualization and kind of an experience from around the world. That's
Yeah.
kind of the idea of starting with the vodka and the limoncello.
Yeah.
Um, so I think those are the two big hitters. Everything here is local. When we expand in the future to other states, we're not going to continue using Florida corn and Florida lemons. If we're in Texas, it'll be locally sourced there.
Yeah.
If we're in the Midwest, it'll be locally sourced there.
Yeah.
That's something that's really important to Mike.
Yeah.
Um, and then, that family recipe, it just really hits home with a lot of people. If you know the history of Tampa, there's a lot of mob history. So there's a lot of Italians here. They love hearing it. They absolutely love hearing that history. We have a lot of pride in the beverage industry in Florida. There's so many breweries. There's so many different local now seltzers, but even
Mm.
different types of liquors. It's one of the states that has really grasped onto the beverage industry in the past handful of years. You see how the beer industry blew up in Denver. A bunch of liquors blew up out of Austin, Texas. It's just this local style. Getting back to those roots has really become popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
And clean ingredients. Those three things are super super heavy with a customer because that's what customers ask for. And so, if a customer's asking for it, then our customers are going to want it. And
Yeah.
so I think that's those are really the important things.
Yeah. And
And
I love
another
the
thing,
idea. I love the
yeah,
idea of locally produced stuff. There's something to be said, not just by supporting local producers, but also you're cutting things down like the logistics side of it is getting cut to nothing. So you're actually helping the environment in a way by sourcing all these local ingredients. I love that. So sorry, carry on what
oh,
you were saying.
absolutely, absolutely. No, I think the only thing I want to add there is it's important. And this might get into some of the other questions you asked, but it's so many things are important not to sacrifice as you scale, and those can be tough decisions.
Yeah.
As Mike's expanding this business here in Florida and adding individuals like myself, it becomes super important to weigh the risk associated with the monetary value, and,
Yeah.
and is it worth the risk and not changing different values right now to grow the business? And he
Yeah.
decided yes, and it's really been a very good decision that he's made so far.
No,
And so,
good.
another reason that he was the type of individual that in this venture, wanting to have him as our first partner, was really important.
Yeah. And what made you go from the medical to profession to the drinks profession? What was the attraction there? Because they're
Yeah.
two very, very opposite businesses.
Absolutely. I've had a bunch of friends throughout my time, be in this industry. I've had a lot of relationships that they've been in this industry, wine and beer, spirits, whatever it may be. Worked for
Hmm.
big distributors, worked for regional distributors, kind of all over the map. Never saw myself here.
Yeah.
Um, and then an opportunity just kind of came across the desk, and it took a few months to kind of make decisions and get things in place to execute. But going back to that first question, carrying that negative weight of other people's problems within myself, In the startup medical world, it's a very fast-paced, crazy world, very
Yeah.
difficult, a lot of regulations. And when companies go through different parts of a startup, there's that first transition from, from your gathering data and studies and then going commercial. There's a huge transition.
Mm.
And unfortunately, sometimes those decisions come with bringing in leadership and bringing in folks from a company that was very large scale that don't see things the way someone that has spent almost 10 years and the most of it was in oncology startup. My
Right.
number one was the customer. It was the patient. Money came with it. But when
Yeah.
you're working in an industry like that, money wasn't my number one at all.
Yeah.
It was getting a cure, getting better, earlier diagnosis to somebody. And so that really started to burn me. And sometimes when you voice your opinion and you stand up for your beliefs, it doesn't go well. So
Yeah.
I was actually let go, and this opportunity kind of just like got spurred into our lives. Actually, my partner Paige, um, she got that opportunity. They reached out to her because of her experience. She's in the entertainment industry. She works. She's been a DJ for a long time.
Yeah.
We moved from Texas. She left a lot of that, but we have a lot of relationships back in Texas throughout the music and entertainment industry, even through news outlets and things like that. A lot of networking connections, and so seeing that we both had that, seeing how we could apply that to this industry, it really excited us. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of why we bit the bullet and said, this could be a fun thing for us to own our business. I've always been, told, own your business. You're in a startup. We don't have time to, hold hands and do all those things. And I loved that, being able to kind of create my own business with my customers. Well, now
Mm.
we actually bought in. We are part owners. We are in this with Mike,
Yeah.
and we are fighting this fight together. And it's been really fun so far.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
So, moving on from that, distribution is often seen as the hardest part of the beverage
Absolutely.
business. What separates the brands that actually secure shelf space in markets, supermarkets, etc., and from those that just never get past that buyer meeting? What is the separation there,
Yeah.
in your opinion?
I think caring. I think caring is huge.
Mm.
The way Mike has organized this is we work with a distributor that is active and actually international. They are in that international space. They have that capability, but they are in every single state over here in the States.
Hmm.
And they are based in Miami, Florida. So another part of us that is based in Florida. But it all started with that partnership that Mike made because
Yeah.
they're the only distributor that he spoke with that didn't want to take more than 40% of our number.
Hmm.
That was really huge. A
Yeah.
lot of the big distributors, if you're a small brand, it might look like a good deal, but they're going to care about the heavy hitters. They're going to care about the Tito's. They're going to care about the Jack. They're going to care about these names that everyone knows, everyone sees behind every single bar top. This
Yeah.
distributor with Park Street, they care about us too. They help us with deals. They use their connections to help us as well when necessary. And we do a lot of work on our end locally, but they're right there with us to fight the battle. And that
Yeah.
was a huge difference. So
Yeah.
the caring started with them caring about us. But I think then when going to a customer and talking about a distributor, they use a lot of the bigger distributors, the national distributors that everyone knows nationally. And when we talk about Park Street, a lot of folks don't work with them already. Well, Park Street
Mhm.
takes a lot of the work off their end. They'll gather the data and everything they need to make them a vendor, and they'll do that process for our customer. And that means a lot. So there's
Yeah.
just this level of caring that comes from all ends that just means so much more.
Yeah.
And when a distributor walks in with a bottle that's small and local and it's as premium and beautiful as it looks, it's a nice glass bottle.
Right.
It has corks, no screw tops. It has a beautiful message on every single bottle that is ended with "Thank you for supporting our American dream."
I love
It's
that.
just
I
a
love that.
nice, yeah, yeah. It's just a really beautiful, nice touch. It's in that script that looks like it's like the Declaration of Independence written in feathering
Nice,
ink.
nice.
It's very, very, it's beautiful. And every bottle is meticulous. You know, this limoncello is a nice curve around top. The
Yeah.
vodka is your normal, tall, and skinny. The whiskey, you see
Oh,
that nice
now you're
sharp
talking my
edge that you
language. Now
see.
you're talking my language.
And this is a beautiful blended whiskey. I like to really think of it as a style of whiskey it's like the Maker's 40 where it's a little smooth. It's that
Yeah,
5% less than your normal 45.
yeah,
It's a smoother, nice, you know, in the middle you get different sweet notes, but it has that nice bite on the end of a whiskey.
yeah.
It is a blended. And then, of course, it's America, so we have to have a moonshine, right? And
Yes.
this beautiful bottle with
Yeah.
the nice little jug handle on it, you know, I think that even shows a level of care that's in every single product.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that matters more than anything. And every part of the process, if you can, you know, if there's really root in just caring about everything, it
Yeah.
means a lot more.
So that's following on from my next question is, EP Winters, they focus heavily on local relationships.
Yeah,
So, from your experience, local distributor relationships, they're extremely important when marketing and building the American
absolutely.
made vodka and other brands. So
Absolutely.
a lot of our audience are obviously whiskey investors or independent bottlers. And
Mhm.
they're looking to sort of launch their own labels, very much like Mike and yourself doing. So, from a distributor's perspective, what makes a premium spirit attract a brand very attractive to carry? Now, you've mentioned some of it, like with the bottling and the labeling and stuff like that. So, what other little nuances are there out there?
Yeah, you know, partnering with Mike, he's taking a big risk with partnering with different people. It's not necessarily, you know, maybe risk isn't the right word to use, but he's just placing a lot of trust in us, where his
Hmm.
goal is getting the brand out there. And so here in the beginning, you know, he's basically all these profits are going to those teams that he's partnering with.
Hmm.
That is a huge thing that means a lot to us partnering with him. It says a lot about Mike. It says a lot about how much he cares about this brand, that he's putting the brand first and not
Yeah.
himself. It says a lot about him. And so that meant a lot. And you know, partnering with all these local folks and the networking that we already have, a lot of it also is partnering with people that we just met. You know, we moved here about Paige and I moved here about a year ago. Um,
Yeah.
so we haven't been in Tampa too long, but the amount of relationships we've made has been incredible
Where are
because
you originally from?
we're from Texas. Yeah.
Oh,
So
so
we're from a
still
very
nice and warm.
competitive spirit space
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Texas. You know, it's man, if you're vodka not Tito's, it's a hard fight. It's a
yeah,
hard fight in Texas.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But you know, we have so many connections in Texas. We actually have some connections all around the United States with my business that I used to be in, with Paige's entertainment business, and partnering with different folks. You know, she has connections in the music and entertainment industry that are national as well. And
Mm,
so, as American Made scales, you know, we're excited we've already been talking to these folks. You know, they're excited. They can't wait for us to get to their state. So that's really exciting. I think it's
yeah,
you know, locally, the new partnerships is, you know, sitting down and again showing that caring, asking questions. You know, part of our business too, and this one's a little half smoked from the golf course last weekend, but a part of our business is cigars as well.
no, nice.
Because if you know anything about Tampa Bay, there's a lot of tobacco and cigar business here. Um, so it was a natural fit. We can offer some premium cigars, you know, infusing it with the limoncello, infusing it with the whiskey or moonshine. Um,
Nice.
but also, it's not just, you know, Tampa's in Florida. That's a great natural step. It's also he's Italian. You know, it's a great thing to include as well.
Yeah,
So that's a fun little part of the business. But you know, sitting down and asking people things, because I've known a fair amount about the alcohol business just from friends and watching things develop in Texas as I grew up and throughout, you know, my early career. But there's so much I didn't know. Um, so many vodkas say that they're 10 times distilled, 3 times filtered, because that is the gold standard of what Russia showed is proven. But
Yeah.
there's so many other meticulous things about it, different things that you can do, the timing, temperatures, all sorts of different things. So just sitting down with the customer and not, just trying to get that sale no matter what. I think it's been really important to um, really focus on learning.
Yeah.
So focusing on, asking questions about, what they think about the alcohol, what notes they get, what taste they get, what's their experience working with an individual like myself. When they make a weird face, when they hear different distributor names, why is that? Tell me about your
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that means a lot. And then, I mean, the cigar business is a completely different thing. I think everyone is, in America, you turn 18, you're like, oh, let's go get cigars. We can legally do that. That was the end of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, that one
Yeah.
has dark paper. It probably tastes a little different. And so, just sitting down with the customer and learning.
Yeah.
That's something I learned in my career. When I was a kid and I got thrown into an operating room, I didn't know anything about surgery. It's and finding a surgeon and asking them all these questions. What are you doing here? Can you please help me understand? They love
Mhm.
teaching. You know,
Yeah.
a bar manager that's been in the industry for so long, or someone at a cigar shop that's been in the industry for so long, they have such a wealth of knowledge, but so rarely are they asked about it.
Yeah.
So
And
that
when
means
you
so
and when you
much.
do ask them, they
Oh,
can't help but talk about it. It's
yeah.
my passion for whiskey. You can ask me about golf. I'll say, yeah, you swing a golf club and that's that. That's as much as I know. Talk about whiskey, I can talk until the bloody cows come home.
Yeah,
It's passionate, and so
absolutely.
when you're speaking to these people, you're gaining that knowledge of their industry that they are super super passionate about. So yeah, I totally agree with you there, bud. So Eric, you spent years scaling startups.
Mhm.
Now you switched and gone into the beverage distribution. Now you're scaling the American made brand. So if there was someone that is going to be building a premium whiskey brand today from scratch, what strategic mistakes should they avoid in the first few years? Have you experienced any? Can you shed any light on that? That would be lovely to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I think again over the years, but especially getting back to more of a door to door, bars, retailers, whatever, a salesperson is even more evident now is knowing where your time is well spent. I shouldn't be calling on a Publix, which is a very large grocery store chain here in Florida. I shouldn't be calling on their beverage manager every day because the
Mm,
decision's not there. We can
yeah.
like, if it's by another bar, stopping in, getting the buzz in someone's ear. Someone corporate is asking different shops, like, yeah, I've seen those folks. I've heard it. I've talked about it. That's one thing. But trying to get a deal done with a large company at a single location, it's a waste of time.
Mm,
Now, it's still super important. So those were questions that I asked before I signed on to partner with Mike. We wanted to know what else was going on, and working on Publix, working on ABC Liquors, which is a large liquor chain, working with Total Wine, which is a very large liquor chain, liquor store chain.
yeah.
But then also having connections to other things like NASCAR. We just Mike just had
Wow.
inked a partnership to be the official liquor at the Daytona 400, and
Wow.
in
That is
August.
superb.
Yeah, and
Not
so
only
when
that,
when I
because
hear him talking about those things, I'm like, yeah, he's doing the right things. This
yeah.
is what I want to be a part of. But
Yeah, I can just imagine your brand at Daytona. People they love racing. They love having a little drink while they're watching the
mhm,
racing. And
yep,
if it's something that is memorable, oh man, I hope it goes. I hope you smash it out the park.
Yeah, we're very, very excited. It's definitely a huge deal. He has a connection and a friend that's involved with NASCAR. So it was a beautiful thing that's kind of happened over the past 6 months, and kind of finally come to fruition here in August. But
Kudos
he's
for
been
that
working on
happening.
those things for so long. And I think that's important because I didn't want to start something where none of those long-term things have been discussed yet.
Hmm.
We want to keep those things going. So we call on those folks, but the little guys, the little Irish pubs are beautiful.
Yeah,
There's so many local pubs here in 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 the Tampa area, and we're in a little bit of East Tampa and Brandon, Florida. Brandon has so many little mom and pop bars and pubs and bistros that they love. First of all, local,
yeah,
but they just love our cost right now. When you can have something premium like this and you're not selling it for over $200 a case, it's huge. It's
yeah,
very, very huge. And so that's been a blessing. So I think, the biggest things that you can do to avoid early, mistakes and partnering with a company like this or doing it yourself is outruling or just kind of writing them off the small guys. Because there's small little bars, there's small little liquor stores that Mike told me a story about 2 years ago. He sold to a liquor store. They got two cases, one of the vodka, one of the limoncello. All of a sudden they're ordering 8 cases a month.
yeah,
These little places can be surprises that keep your fuel going.
yeah,
They keep the money flow happening, they keep you in business, and they can be
yeah.
really strong relationships and partners.
It's just like these
Some
little pockets of people that actually love what,
Yeah,
American made represents. They love the taste.
absolutely.
They love what it represents. They love the bottling, the branding,
Yeah.
everything. Can, like you say, they keep the doors open.
Yep, absolutely. And it's those folks, they become friends. We're going one of our bars that we're working with, they have 3 locations. They've been the best pub. It's called 1918 Irish Pub, and we're working on a partnership with them. But those early conversations were awesome because everyone seems very connected. There's a lot of family involved with those bars, and they've been one of the best pubs rated in the Tampa Bay area for years.
Yeah,
And sitting down with them, it's like 2 hours into conversation. I don't remember the last time we talked about alcohol. These folks, it's just becoming friends with these folks and having that good partnership early on. It's going to mean the most. It's going to mean a lot.
yeah,
And I got a quote from Mike actually of something he said that, as far as how far back he goes, pre-COVID, when he kind of started all this stuff, he said, doing your research and testing and investing into the process can take years. There's so many regulations, so many levels of organizational development that have to be secured. But it's important not to rush and not to sacrifice your passion for someone else's efforts if they don't
mm,
support that same passion. And he was talking about, meeting with an accountant early on, mentioning, why don't we do screw tops? Why don't we do one of them in plastic? No, that doesn't
yeah,
look good. When's the last time you drank liquor out of something plastic that tasted good?
yeah, yeah,
It's just not good,
yeah,
especially in a place like Florida. Those plastic bottles sitting in a warehouse or on a truck, that plastic's not gonna do good for the liquor,
no,
and this heat and humidity. So it's really important, if you see things that might add a lot of benefit as far as costs, you need to weigh the actual, end point to making
yeah,
those changes because it
yeah,
could be really detrimental. And really pushing and maintaining this image was probably the best gamble Mike did. And it seems like a gamble at first because you see the cost differences, like if an accountant's presenting them to you. But seeing all the impact he's made and that we're making now, it doesn't really seem like a gamble anymore. It just seems like the only decision that he should have made.
yeah. And well, Eric, this has been one of the most interesting conversations to me, mainly because I'm an investor who invests in whiskey that is actually keen to start his own whiskey brand in the future. So
Yeah.
for me, this was extremely educational. I think it's going to be educational for anyone that is wanting to go into their own whiskey brand. Taking their taking the casks and actually, turning it into their own brand. I think it's a great story. I can talk about it forever, but we've got to go. So,
Yeah.
again, thanks to my listeners and the viewers of YouTube as well. Now, before we sign off, Eric, I'm sure some of my listeners or viewers might want to get in touch with you, find out more about what you do at EP Winters and American Made. How can they actually do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me easily via email. My email is just eshinsky at americanmadevodka.com.
Okay.
And if you have questions that are above me, Mike is easily to get in touch too. And I can do that. But americanmadebeverages.com has a lot of information as well on our branding and everything. As far as talking to myself, I'm very responsive on LinkedIn, and it's just Eric Schinske, MSW on LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
so it's feel free to message me there. Would love to talk about this venture or other ventures that we have ideas about, different things EP Winters will go to.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So that almost wraps up today's episode. I want to thank my guest for joining me on the show and sharing his very unusual passion. Well, not unusual for us, but unusual for some. But before we go, quick reminder, this episode was brought to you by Whiskey Wealth Mastery. It is where serious investors learn how to build wealth through a premium whiskey cask the right way. So if you have ever wondered whether whiskey could be something that you could own, grow, and monetize, not just drink, you can download a free guide at whiskeywealthmastery.com/free. So you've been listening to the Whiskey Wealth Warrior podcast. I'm your host, Glen Palmer. I was joined by Eric Schinske. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.